Okay guys, today we're going to look at the kidney and urinary system. So here is our typical kidney. Now if you notice around the kidney, you see this kind of a brown layer around this. This is the fibrous capsule that protects the kidney. Coming in, the outer edges of your kidney, which is a lighter color, that's your renal cortex. And the deeper part of the kidney, which is these structures or the inner part of it, would be called renal medulla. Now, renal medulla is made up of these individual pyramid-shaped structures, or by themselves, called renal pyramids. So if we talk about the whole inner aspect of the kidney, that's medulla. If we talk about individual structures, those would be renal pyramids. Now what we have on top of your kidney, you have this gland right here. This is a triangular gland, part of the endocrine system called the adrenal gland. You have two main blood vessels that are coming into and out of the kidney. The red one is the renal artery, which we also observed in the cardiovascular system. And the thicker one that is coming out is your renal vein. So we're gonna track down these blood vessels through the kidney as they start to branch. So renal artery branches into segmental artery. Segmental artery branches into the interlobal artery, and again follow the red right now. Interlobal artery branches into these branches right here that runs between the cortex and medulla, called the arcuate artery. And then you have these smaller branches that are fully inside the cortex, called the cortical radiate artery or interlobular arteries. Now, when you track down the veins are also very similar with the exception of one. So again, let's track them. These would be the cortical radiate vein or interlobular vein. Again, the blue one right here is the arcuate vein. These ones are interlobar vein, and then eventually comes out these interlobar vein as the renal vein. You do not have segmental vein in terms of the veins. We only have segmental arteries for the arteries coming into your kidney. Now let's zoom into this structure a little bit more. So if you notice, you will see these little circles with tiny blood vessels coming off of them, and then this tubing you see in white. So what they're depicting is a nephron. Nephrons are the functional units of your kidney that are basically responsible for production of urine. So for us to better understand this, we're going to look at the second model in this, which is a zoom-in version focusing on the nephron. So kind of orienting you right here. Again, here, the brown that you see on the outer edge, that's your capsule, that's your fibrous capsule. This area is your cortex, and this area is your medulla. So, right here, if you just see this circle, these circles are identified as your renal corpuscle. But if you open these, and you can see them in some of these depicted as on their open circles, these would be called the glomerulus. These are the capillary networks that are helping you filter your blood. Now, glomerulus, which is right here, is surrounded by that capsule around it called the glomerular capsule. So please understand the difference. If I'm just pointing to a yellow circle, that's your renal corpuscle. If I'm looking at the opened version of this, so we're looking at the internal structures, the red inside is the glomerulus, and the shell around it is your glomerular capsule. Now, these kind of convoluted tube you see right here at the beginning, connected directly to your glomerulus, these are called proximal convoluted tubules. Then again, if you follow this, you have your nephron loop right here, correct? Now, what we can identify as filtrate, which is the fluid that's being processed, it's first gonna go down So this part going down is the descending limb. It then loops up and then come up, so this would be your ascending limb. You have additional tubes right here, and these are called distal convoluted tubules. And number of distal convoluted tubules are emptying into this larger tube right here, which is collecting urine, called the collecting duct. Now, I want to take a second and make sure everybody's understand, because we're going to come back and look at the original picture we were looking at. So right now we had the path that your filtrate and eventually your urine is taking is at the beginning in your renal corpuscle, going to the proximal convoluted tubules, descending limb, ascending limb, distal convoluted tubule, and then collecting duct. So collecting duct is going to be right here, the tube that you see right here at the center. So many collecting ducts are now emptying into a little bit larger tubes you see right here, 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 and these are called minor calyx. So the two minor calyces in this case are merging together to form a larger tube called the major calyx. Now I have a major calyx here, and one here. When these major calyces merge together, they're emptying into this larger area right here called the renal pelvis. Renal pelvis comes out of the kidney with this tube called the ureter. So if you're looking at the path of urine, it's collecting duct, minor calyx, major calyx, renal pelvis, ureter, and that eventually goes to the bladder and then urethra out of the body. Now the last thing I want to show you in terms of the structures is going to the third picture, which is the zoom-in version of our glomerular or renal corpuscle. So right here in this picture, what you have is this shell that is around, a capillary network at the center, a blood vessel that is coming in, and a blood vessel that is leaving. So let's identify these structures. So the tuft of capillary network here is your glomerular capsule. Sorry, glomerulus, not glomerular capsule, glomerulus. The shell around this circle that you see around, that's your glomerular capsule. The tube you see continuing coming off of this, that's your proximal convoluted tubules. The yellow that you see covering the capillary network are podocytes, which are basically part of your glomerular capsule. So the yellow are podocytes. The blood vessel that is going to bring in blood to your nephron, this one right here, which is a thicker one, is the afferent arteriole, and the one that is taking blood away would be your efferent arteriole. Last but not least is this tube you see right smack between the afferent and efferent arteriole. This is the continuation of your distal convoluted tubules that are basically eventually empties into the collecting duct. So one last thing I want to show you is looking at this urinary system as a whole and in terms of male and female reproductive system. So we're going to start with this picture right here. Again, here is your kidney, adrenal glands right on top. You have your renal vein and renal artery on the side. The tube that is coming off of the kidneys are your ureters, which empty into the bladder and eventually out of the body through the tube called the urethra. When we're comparing the male and female system in that term, the bladder would be right here underneath the uterus. So here's the uterus, here's the bladder. There is a separate opening. So this opening right here is the urethra, that's connected to the bladder for female. However, when we compare that to male, right here, here is the bladder and here is the urethra for male. Again, comparing this urethra starting from here to here versus this urethra, you notice that female urethra is definitely shorter. And the other main difference is that in female, you have an opening for urethra or urinary system and an opening for reproductive system, which is the vagina. In case of male, however, you have what? One long tube, which is the urethra, that is used both for emptying the bladder and also during the process of ejaculation. Okay, so that's it for our urinary system.